Hello, I'm Katie Palmer, and this is What's Wrong with This World. Today we'll be talking about the crisis in Crimea. Over the past few months, the Crimean Peninsula has been overrun with Russian soldiers. Russian President Vladimir Putin assures the public that there is no harm being done to the Crimean residents, while other countries, including the USA, believe it is just a plot to annex the area. Crimea is already majority Russian, with 58% of residents identifying themselves as such. On March 17th, the Crimean Parliament declared independence from Ukraine and asked to join the Russian Federation. Then, on March 27, 2014, the UN General Assembly called the addition of Crimea to Russia as illegal. Many are looking to President Obama to take actions as the commander-in-chief. Now, for more information on this topic, here is President of Russia himself, Vladimir Putin.
Hello, I am Vladimir Putin, and I am the supreme overlord of the greatest country in the world, Russia.
Hello, President Putin. Let me begin by asking you, how and why is Russia responding to international pressure as it is?
President Obama's administration has been placing travel sanctions on prominent Russian politicians who support Russia taking action in Crimea. We have responded in kind by placing similar travel sanctions on many U.S. politicians.
Now, what do you think about the U.S.'s role in the world? Do you think we should be going in to assist Ukraine and Crimea?
I think the U.S. should butt out of Russia's business. We will do what we want and what is necessary to make sure Russia and its citizens benefit. Ever since World War II, the U.S. has been more and more internationalist in their foreign policy. And it's been hurting them and the rest of the world, even under the guise of humanitarianism and ideological reasons for giving aid to foreign nations. And the U.S. is too used to throwing their weight around on the international stage. Russia is simply following the U.S.'s example by assisting Crimea with having a better democracy when we helped with the election to join the Russian Federation. Like the U.S. got involved with Korea in the 50s for ideological reasons. The U.S. generally gets involved with foreign policy due to national security and economic reasons. The Russian Federation poses no immediate threat to the U.S., therefore giving no reason to intervene in our business.
Considering that there have been no natural disasters or other events that would warrant the U.S. going to help Ukraine, the U.S. cannot explain their intervention with humanitarian reasons. Here to talk more about this is Congresswoman Kate Muma from Maryland.
Hi, Katie. Glad to be here.
So, Senator Muma, what is Congress doing to address this issue?
Recently, Congress has exercised its power of the purse to send aid to Ukraine in an overwhelming vote, an odd idea for the United States government, considering that money is not something we give away easily. Foreign policy issues are generally more partisan, so the measure being passed with a large majority is strange. The government is trying to get Russia to disengage from the Crimean Peninsula.
What is the U.S. government trying to do to ease these tensions?
Well, lately, President Obama and Senator John Kerry have met with officials from Russia and Ukraine to try and hammer out a deal. This is the executive branch demonstrating their power to meet with foreign leaders and make deals with them. If a deal is just between the president and the foreign executive, it is called an executive agreement, and while it lasts only for the duration of the president's term, it does not need senatorial approval. But if the president and a foreign executive come to an agreement but need something only Congress can provide, such as money which Congress has control over due to the power of the purse, the agreement is a treaty and must be approved by the Senate.
On the 28th of May, President Obama highlighted his foreign policy plans. Obama says that the situation in Ukraine is reminiscent of the days when Soviet tanks would roll into Eastern European countries. Senator Muma, what was our president trying to accomplish by giving this commencement?
The president has tried to use his power of persuasion by using the opportunity to speak at West Point and as a bully pulpit to stimulate Congress into more direct action and to inform the public with media coverage that was present at the event. Obama says in his speech that he will try and increase U.S. involvement in foreign policy affairs, while at the same time reminding the new graduates of West Point that they will be the first class since 9/11 to not be deployed in Iraq or Afghanistan.
The president himself mentioned in the address that the odds of the direct threat against us by any nation are low. If the other nations don't pose a threat to us, why would the U.S. have to go intervene in Ukraine?
The reason the U.S. is placing pressure on Russia is because a referendum held while foreign soldiers are in your country is not fair or valid. In late February, Russian special forces began to take over the Crimean Peninsula. However, these soldiers were not identified as Russian until Putin admitted that the soldiers that were stationed in the Crimean Peninsula were in fact Russian, and that they helped facilitate the referendum which led Crimea to vote to join the Russian Federation. How could the election be fair if one of the groups that the Crimeans were voting on was responsible for the implementation of it? Obviously, the people holding the election were biased, and the result of the election should not be held as accurate representation of what the people of Crimea want. This is not self-determination. The U.S. is putting pressure on Russia and pro-Russia Ukraine because of the conflict with our ideological foreign policy beliefs. This isn't a real democracy. The referendum is simply a clever facade to make sure that Russia will save face when they annex Crimea.
Thank you, Senator Muma, for your opinion. Now, for the next couple minutes, Senator Muma will be answering questions from the audience. Anyone have a question? Yes.
Well, the first several questions are for Senator Muma. Firstly, how will the tension in Ukraine affect the U.S. economically?
Ukraine exports a lot of steel and iron to the U.S. They are our 67th largest trading partner, but we also provide them with coal and poultry products. Because of interest groups being so deeply mired in our politics, the coal industry and poultry companies will not like having economic sanctions on Ukraine because they lose a marketplace for their goods. They may try to lobby members of Congress by providing them information to influence their opinions. In places where poultry farms are common, the chicken companies may start a grassroots campaign to try and get the residents of the area themselves to influence legislators from said areas.
What role does the bureaucracy play in foreign affairs, especially in Crimea? Does agency capture play any role in how the bureaucracy reacts to this crisis?
Obviously, the State Department, one of the cabinet departments, is involved in the area because they focus on foreign policy. Actually, May 30th, John Kerry, the Secretary of State, leader of the State Department, called the Russian foreign minister to raise his concerns over what is happening in Ukraine. Agency capture does not really play a role in how the bureaucracy would work in Crimea because while an industry may capture a regulatory agency and cause prices to rise and regulation to sag, Ukraine is a foreign country and the regulatory agencies have no power to regulate business in places other than the U.S.
How does public opinion factor in how the government will choose to act in Ukraine?
A survey held by USAID, a government agency dedicated to providing foreign aid, held a poll recently showing that 58% of Americans believe that the situation over Crimea was deteriorating. Because of the tendency of elected officials to be more internationalist and more likely to want to intervene in other countries than the layman, the fact that such a large amount of U.S. citizens want to help out Ukraine only bolsters Congress and the President to intervene in Ukraine. If some sort of harm were to come to the U.S., public opinion would likely be much more willing to go to intervene. Citizens tend to rally around the flag in times of national crisis, but more specifically, the President was who we look to in times of crisis, so his power would grow exponentially.
If the U.S. was to just give up on helping Ukraine keep its land, what would happen then?
The term you are looking for is appeasement. If we were to just give up Crimea and let Russia take what they wanted, we would lose face on the international stage. This is eerily similar to what happened pre-World War II, when Germany invaded neighboring countries. At first, other countries were not willing to fight over a war, someone else's business. So they tried to appease Germany by letting them take what they wanted. We all know how well that worked, except that giving up the Crimean Peninsula is not a good idea.
Thank you for your time, Senator Muma.
No problem.
Well, that's all the time we have today, folks. Stay cool.
Stay classy.